Radcast News. Hey guys, Ryan Alford, your host of the Radcast.
You're listening to the Radcast.
If it's radical, we cover it. Here's Ryan and Riley.
Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Ryan Alford, host of the Radcast. We are in part 6 or 7. Not sure, Riley. I'm having a hard time keeping up, but of the eSports series. It's been a good one. Had a ton of interaction. And today I'm super pumped to have Matt Arden, head of content and media NBA 2K League. Matt, great to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Do I drop it 3-time Emmy winner? I mean, do I start there? Like, I got to butter you up here. I want some good stuff.
No, if I didn't win it with the NBA 2K League, it doesn't count anymore.
All right. So excited to have Matt on. We shared a few stories from a mutual friend, one of the voices of, if not the voice of NBA 2K League, Scott Cole, good friend of mine and uber talented. So great to have that connection. But you know what's going on, man? ESPN2 every week, almost every week. Lots happening with you guys.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, you and I were talking, before we hit play that I hesitate to say that this period has been fun because it's obviously for so many more global implications has not been fun. But I think that we've, made a very good run at making the best of it. And we have found the silver lining in all of this. And I think, in a weird way, it's been bearable because we've had NBA 2K League to lean on. And I think that, I think we're always really outwardly focused on the fans, but it was weird how when we focused internally on how we're going to battle this whole COVID situation, that we realized what fans we are of sports and of eSports and of the 2K League. And for us that work on the league, it's been great for us too, because it's been an escape for us too. It's been, it's kind of saved us.
That's exactly right. I mean, I never knew how much I miss sports until the gap between the NBA and I'm not even a huge MLB fan, but I was like, Braves are down the road from us here in Greenville, quasi Braves fan. I'll catch, a few innings here. I'm like, I was missing MLB. So, I'm sorry. I mean, that is not the biggest baseball, but I was just like missing the sport. So I was like praying for the golf not to get canceled when it started back.
Dude, I was watching. Cornhole was following us on ESPN2 a lot of nights, and I was glued to that when we went off air. Yeah. Anything competitive, anything that feels like sports, we're in.
I've never watched as much Korean baseball at 5:30 a.m. at my gym. Then I'd have it on ESPN in the gym and watching Korean baseball. And I'm like really rooting for these guys. And I'm like,
what's cool though? Like with all that, again, trying to find the silver lining, now I kind of have little fandoms with certain Korean baseball teams. And I have the ability that it's given us to, expose us to different sports and different people. For me, look at the core, I'm a storyteller, right? And to understand some of these new stories and meet interesting people and understand their backgrounds, all that's been super cool in a weird way. And again, I would like us to get past this, and I would like to not ever have another COVID era. But it has exposed us to some really cool things, and it's been, there have been some cool moments. So, I don't want to throw it all away.
I love it. So let's start storytelling. You opened the book perfect for me. I love it. I know that's your background. I know, again, we mentioned the Emmys, but let's start there a little bit, your background in storytelling and producing, and then maybe, teeing off right to 2K League, kind of, maybe give you a little bit of that back history of Matt and kind of your, what led up to where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, I got really lucky in college. I worked my way through college working in sports media at Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. Sorry, I know you're a Clemson fan, but I worked at, the newspaper and the radio station, the TV station down there, and then I landed an internship at the time at WRC in Washington for the George Michael Sports Machine, which at the time he was the, biggest syndicated sports program on Sunday nights globally. And I learned a lot from him. And, the biggest piece of advice he ever gave me was that your college degree is great, but don't try to prove to everybody you can write circles around them. You want your stories to be embraced by everybody in America. His whole thing was mom and pop beer can better understand what you're trying to say. And and that's sort of, how I approach storytelling as an executive producer, and started out as a sportscaster on air, and then found myself incredibly lucky to get hired down in Atlanta. Lived in Atlanta for 11 years and worked for the majority of that at Turner Sports. And Turner Sports was amazing for me in so many ways. One, it really introduced me to the NBA product, and I got to work on NBA a ton as a big part of my career. Got to meet my wife, which I would, no offense to the league, but I would put her above the NBA. But
good,
but it's a close race. And I got, down there, as part of my maturation in storytelling, I got exposed to two very important people in my growth. One was Ernie Johnson. He and I was on a show with him. He hosted the show that handed off to my show. And he was really instrumental in giving me a lot of advice and was always very kind to me. And you talk about Scott Cole and some of the shared friends that we have, Ernie Johnson and Scott and those guys. Homework was always the thing. That do your research, know your homework, tell the story the right way. And he really hammered that home with me. And then the other one was Craig Berry at Turner Sports, who's still there. Craig was a huge influence on my life. Hired me into CSSU down there as employee number one. As the first sort of main hire under him as a PA. Didn't know much, but learned everything from him.
Were these like Dominique Wilkins, Spud Webb days? Are we talking?
I'm not quite that old.
Okay,
Brian,
all right.
I'll say that my second year. I won't give you my age, but I'll say my second year in CSSU was the LeBron and Melo draft years. So that'll date me a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
So anyway, Turner Sports is great to me. Craig was great to me. I learned a lot down there. Shared time with some incredible writers and producers, namely Drew Watkins and Matt Mosteller, and we all came up together. And then my wife got a job offer in New York City, and I grew up in Virginia, lived in Atlanta. I'd never lived north of the Mason-Dixon really. So I was like, all right, let's try it. So I quit my job, moved to New York. I worked for a great company right when I came to New York called Maggie Vision, who does a lot of work with ESPN and does the ESPYs and NFL honors. And then went the agency side, went brand side for a while with a company called Screen Vision. And then I've been with the NBA for the last, year and a half or a little over. And kind of felt like a homecoming, honestly, because I spent so much of my career working on the NBA product that it was it just felt like after 8 years or 7 years in New York City, it felt like I finally landed at a home. It was where I was supposed to be. It's been great.
What's been the transitioning from the NBA proper to 2K League, the video game side, which obviously the games, it's gotten so realistic. Like there's so much crossover, like we said, Scott calling the games and everything else, like in the league. Like the reality's there, but what was that transition like? From it, was it probably more seamless than you'd think?
It was to a degree. The biggest thing I needed was an education in eSports. It's a very tight community. It's a grassroots community, and I am an outsider to a degree. I mean, I play video games. I have an Xbox, but to say I'm a gamer would be false, at least at the time. I'm a casual gamer. And this is a real endeavor. This is a real practice, and this is a real career for so many. And so gaining education, earning the respect of the players and the league, gaining counsel, our managing director, Brendan Donahue, was incredible, getting me up to speed. Sam Asfahani, who had the role before me, who now has OS Studios here in New York, he would spend time with me and teach me some of the ins and outs that I didn't know. Our own internal team, a guy on my team, TJ Canty, he's incredible. Gave me a ton of knowledge, really filled in the gaps. And then some outsiders too, Ariel Horn and people like that. I sought a lot of counsel early on to learn the esports side of it, because where you're talking about the transition from the NBA side, the part that was easy was storytelling is storytelling, and unlocking a great story and telling a great story and giving people an incredible visual representation of a sport or a game. Those fundamentals remain. But it was making sure that I was being authentic, and I really needed to learn core values and where players and teams and leagues come from. Once I sort of started to get that education, the storytelling became a little easier, and it became much more automatic for me. I didn't have to think through it as much. And look, the NBA is an awesome company, resources and people to help you walk through these things. And it's really a great place to work. And the transition was made seamless for me. I didn't have to fight too hard.
So talk, down that path, and I do want to talk about some of the content. I've been enjoying that on the YouTube channel. That's where I digest it. The Frenemies, watched that from last night. So it's been really interesting, the stories of the players and all that. And there's such a lot of storytelling that I see there. Being in the business, it's really great. But talk about your role and like, what are the goals ultimately? Like, what does success look like both your role and then what does success look like in that role of content media for you guys?
Well, look, I mean, we're a small team, right? We're a startup within the NBA. So I think, success is a number of different, platforms. And for our marketing team or our league ops team, for our league overall, for our players and teams, there's probably different benchmarks that mark success. But I think for the content and broadcast team, it would be, I'll put it this way. When ESPN came on, during all this, and we're on, obviously the app all season long, and we've been on ESPN2 a number of times. The success for us actually looked like them saying, "Hey, we're interested in this, but what, can you guys produce a show, that belongs on ESPN?" And our answer was yes. And they looked at our product, and we looked at our product, and everybody went, "Wow, you guys are producing a real thing here." And so I think that was the first measure of success for us, was that we're not producing in a way that we feel we can get away with. We're, in fact, in many ways, we're overproducing and making it much more beautiful than it probably needs to be. And that felt really good to us when ESPN said, "Sure, no problem, let's get you on air." That felt like a really big measure of success for us, both creatively and artistically, and from narratively. And I think for us, that's the goal, at least on the content and broadcast side, is to continue to make really compelling content, despite the restrictions that we're faced with now with COVID, and keep pushing forward narratives, because honestly, our players and our teams are awesome. They are some of the most compelling characters I've ever worked with in my 22 years in sports, in broadcast. So if we can continue to push those stories forward and find partners that help us tell those stories, that'll be success for me.
Yeah, I love it. And so in kind of the production now, I'd love to go down that path with the, maybe using the obviously most logical ESPN2 connection. Like, I'm sure we could spend the entire episode talking about what it takes to pull that off or what brought that together. But I think it would be fascinating just to understand maybe a little bit, to give our listeners kind of just how complex and or what is happening. You've got announcers at home. You have, everyone I imagine is remote in some way. Maybe you have a core team, but talk to us about some of that production.
So we had about 3 or 4 weeks to figure out how to go from an arena in Hell's Kitchen that has a broadcast facility built in it to producing the same level of content and broadcast quality from 30 living rooms in 2 countries and in 22 states. So it was
no big deal.
No big deal. No big deal.
Yeah.
The first question was,
is there an app for that?
Ironically, yes, there is. Some of our stuff is app based. It's there's this really cool app I have on my iPad that I can pull up all of our camera angles and I can literally call shots from home. But first stop was always game sanctity is always the first question. So first stop with us was League Ops, and they're an incredible team. Daniel and Brad on that side of our league. They made sure that and obviously our partners at Take-Two. They made sure the game was going to be stable. We could do it. We knew we could pull it off from a gameplay perspective. And then it was, okay, let's stack the broadcast on top of it. And what we did was we ended up building 23 mobile broadcast units. So, we call them fly packs. And essentially we said, what are the base materials we need for someone to broadcast from their living room? And we got this stack of components, and our partners at De Facto, who produce our show with us, were incredible at helping us synthesize and figure out what are those core elements. And we built 23 fly packs, and we sent it to the 23 teams. And then De Facto then figured out a broadcast strategy that would take in all these feeds, understanding that they're going to be coming off of 23 different Wi-Fi signals, strengths, whatever it's all completely variable. And it's not only variable by who has what bandwidth available, but then what's the weather like? What's the traffic light in that region? It's insane. So we built it all into a hub, and we've got it being produced half in Vancouver at De Facto's headquarters, and the other half, our core on the back end, is out of Toronto, at the Rogers Center there, We've got our TD and our A1 sitting in a room there and making sure that whatever gets pushed through the pipeline on fiber that goes to our platform partners, whether it's ESPN or Twitch or YouTube, that they're getting a concise, mixed, synced, official, HD product, and that's how we run our operation. And we had 3.5 weeks to figure it out, so that's no
Sounds
big deal.
Yeah, right.
And then, not to mention your point, Scott is in South Carolina in his home, and Dirk the caster is at his home in Illinois. So we had to build, 2 more fly packs for them, and then we built 2 spare fly packs. We bring in Julian Vianney or Ariel Powers sometimes as guest casters. So we have these floating fly packs that we use when we want to bring in extra voices. And then we figured out, how can we integrate Skype and any other way to sort of connect to a broadcast to bring in special guests. Our graphics department, we use a company called Heiser, a guy named Matt McLeod out of Houston, who built a show that would look like we'd produced it in a broadcast facility, but it's being run out of everybody's living room. And I'm here in New York, and half the team is spread out across New York and in different places. We're making it work.
I'm hearing a story within the story here. I hope someone's documenting what it took to make
it. I think if we go back and document it, we're all going to get PTSD. I think we just got to keep moving forward.
Exactly. So talk about the partnership with ESPN, what that's been like. I mean, I can only imagine those having the eyeballs, and I know that you've had other on-air content before COVID, but what's that been like? What's that done for you guys, and what's been the reaction to the more mainstream live broadcasts?
I can't say enough about them as partners. The people that we work with on the ESPN side have been absolutely awesome. And I think, we worked incredibly hard to be ready for whatever eventuality came during this process. So we're incredibly proud that they thought the product was a great product to put on their air. And, since the initial announcement, ESPN has picked up an additional 21 nights on ESPN2 alone. And of course, we're on the app the whole time throughout the season. So I think that's a testament to how we've been able to work together and how we've been able to grow the product together. They've had input on different advancements in different content storylines in the broadcast that do hit ESPN2, and we take those suggestions very seriously. And we've in many ways, when we're on air with them, we're working on the show together. And they've just been awesome creative partners. And from the linear side, we're really proud because we're obviously meeting a new audience, every night that we're with them. And we're hearing that feedback, and we're seeing people come back, from the ESPN2 broadcast into, we'll find some in our Twitch chat, and we'll find them following us as we go, on different platforms on different nights. And so, like anything in life, right, it just comes down to opportunity. And we're just really proud that we were given the opportunity, and that we were prepared to step up to the challenge when the opportunity was presented. So we've been overjoyed with what we've seen with them.
What's the featured stories both on broadcast and, like I mentioned, your series on I digest on YouTube, but I'm
Locked In, yeah.
But talk about maybe that, and that's what sponsored by AT&T. We'll give them a shout out.
Appreciate it.
They seem to do a good job with it. So and I've enjoyed I'd love to know what brings to life those stories. And obviously the players themselves, like you said, are so dynamic, or more than you maybe even realized. But what kind of goes into kind of bringing those stories to life?
A couple things. One is, I appreciate the shout out for AT&T, but the truth is they deserve a lot of credit because they're not just a partner with a name on the show. They've really helped us produce the show this year, because Locked In is a series we created last season, and we spent a lot of time and effort traveling and shooting and filming, and it's a full-on immersive production for 18 weeks. How do you make that show in season? How do you give that show a season 2 when we're all isolated and quarantined? AT&T became an active participant in the production communication, and they gave us we're at 20 different fully loaded prepped phones that they shipped to us with AT&T service. And so we use those phones to record the show. We ship them to the teams or players. They're fully ready to upload the footage back to us to a server using AT&T service. All the footage for the most part is shot on these AT&T phones. And they became an actual production partner, to solve this problem with us. and which has been amazing because we figured out how to produce, a full show during a time where we couldn't be face to face with anybody.
We talked about sacred cows, production quality, like all these things that have been there for so long that like, oh, we have to shoot it with the 4K and like this, and
Oh, yeah.
I gotta have this, and I gotta have, I gotta have craft services over here and all. I mean, good grief. It's like the reality is that if you could tell a story, the content makes the story, the quality is secondary or fifth.
It is and it isn't. I will fight back. I'll argue with you on that one for
All right.
one reason. One thing we said going into this was we're going to get a lot of free passes. We're going to get a lot of excuses for quality. And I don't know if this makes it fun to work with me or difficult to work with me, but I refuse to accept any of those excuses. We still dedicate a ton of quality to, I don't know if you hear my computer dinging, but it's 5:02. So obviously there's an emergency somewhere. I'll start over with you, but the truth is I'll fight you on that a little bit in that the quality matters. And so we have an incredible production partner in a company called Mall Media here in New York City that does a lot of our shoot and edit, all of our edit. And, we dedicated the same energy to the craft as we would have otherwise. We just recognized that we were doing it a little differently, but we still dedicate a ton to the edit and graphics and sound mix and design. And we want to make sure that we're still producing high quality content despite the free pass that might be out there collectively, in the greater ecosystem. We're still going to push a really high quality product. And I think you're seeing that in Locked In. And to answer your second question about like, where do we find those stories? One is we're just really dedicated to paying attention to more than just the X's and O's. And we've got this great guy, Graham Borden, who's our community ambassador, goes online by Black Frank White. He's knows everybody in the community, knows everybody in the 2K community, in the 2K league. And he's a huge asset to have on our team. Because he can bring those stories to the surface for us too. Hey, you guys really got to look at this person. You guys really got to look at this team. Hey, I've been talking to some players over here and they're doing this really cool thing. And so we're able to unearth stories in this very organic way because it's all coming from a very real place. We're not just making cold calls to teams and being like, hey, you got anything cool going on? We actively know what's going on by continuing these conversations. And so we chase down a lot of these stories that A, you wouldn't normally hear, and B, aren't necessarily tied to wins and losses and X's and O's.
I love it. And by quality, I don't mean time in production, but more.
I know what you mean.
But whether it's a smartphone or a $20,000 or $100,000 red camera.
It's true.
Yeah.
And what we're learning is, I wouldn't say we're learning, but what guys like me and you are finally being able to affirm is that a good story is what matters. There's no more tricks. There's no more bells and whistles. It just raw truth. That's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. Is what's the it's so hard to think past COVID, and not that it even matters necessarily, but what's kind of the future hold for you guys with the league, and is there anything you can share that we should be expecting as far as content or stories or different things like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, growth for us is you can see it in real time, right? Season 1 was 17 teams. Season 2 is 21 teams. Season 3 is 23 teams with the first international and traditional eSports franchise, Gen G, Shanghai Tigers. So, or Tigers from Shanghai, and international qualifiers. So I don't think there's any gray area there. I think it's pretty easy to see that, active hint that we want to be a truly global league with divisions in Asia and Europe. And Gen G was a huge first step in that. They're obviously helping us even with player identification, in different regions. And so I think that from a league perspective is what you're already seeing. From the content and broadcast side, I think, just continue to get bigger and badder. We have a virtual studio now, so that's been a fun thing coming out of this COVID era, but I think we'll continue to experiment with virtual technologies and remote productions, even when we don't have to, because now we know we can, and there's tons of value to it. And I think just, obviously continuing to find more distribution platforms that, want to play with us. ESPN's been a great example of that. We've got EGG in Southeast Asia and Sportsnet in Canada. And we've just been able to make really great relationships and find some cool distribution that's given us access to a whole new audience, in different places. So I think you'll continue to see that, that level of growth, I think. And as far as production, in process, You'll continue to see more one-on-one content so we can explain the game and the league to people who are joining us for the first time or, the first few times. I love this series 24 Seconds with Autumn Johnson that's sponsored by Tissot. I think we'll see more content like that with, quick fire, snackable, learn more about our players. We've got this new series Behind the Screens with Jeff Eisenband, which takes a deeper dive, spends more time with players and understanding how they became esports professionals. I think those are important stories to tell. And you've got the final 4 episodes of Locked In still in production, so I don't want to give away too many hints on those, but you see some fun storylines. And I think, later in the season, you'll see storylines that are tied to more to our core principles and some of the pillars of our own, growth and what we can do with esports and the gaming community at large. So, just a couple things to work on from our living rooms.
Just a couple. Are we going to see more linear with esports? It seems like it's coming fast. As a whole, it seems like that's the next frontier, maybe, or amongst many.
Yeah, I think it'll become much more part of the, general fare. You obviously see Venn coming online here in August soon. I saw the leaked teaser trailer for G4, so I guess that's coming back. So I think, there's, I think all the signs point to greater opportunity for greater distribution for esports and gamers. So I'm encouraged by everything we're seeing, and I think, we're right in the mix with it. I think we're an awesome product that hopefully we find homes in all these places.
Yeah. The interesting thing with esports is just the ecosystem is so large with the games and the segments and I know the foundation is with more of the shoot 'em up games, as I call them. And, I'll go down that route. I have asked every guest that we've had on. I have 4 boys under the age of 11, and they all are gamers.
Yeesh.
And, so, do they have a future career in this? Like my 11-year-old specifically wants to know. So I'm asking every guest: is this? It seems like it might be closer than it ever was, but is this a career path?
Esports for sure. I mean, look, and I think even broader than gameplay, I think what we're realizing is that marketing professionals and league operations and developers and, I think the career paths that esports has opened up is so much broader than just becoming a gamer and a professional game player. Everything from people who were used to traditional television production to content creators to, CROs, CMOs, these are businesses that are going to continue to grow. And I think the multitude of careers that can be attached to esports is limitless right now. I would say 100% this is a career that'll be there for them when they're ready to join the workforce and take my job from me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see. Hopefully we're both retired and on a beach somewhere, but probably we're about the same age. What's your perspective on the whole, for esports and the growth and, it seems like the mainstream is here. I still wonder, and I don't want to get into the whole issue of violence and all that, but it just seems like, and that's why I love what you guys are doing. And I'm pushing my kids more into the sports side. Not because, look, I'm at the end of the day, I think, people hurt people, games don't hurt people. And, it's like, you got to teach them right for wrong and all those things. But is that going to be a hold up for brands and things? The violent side of it. It seems like it could be. I don't know.
As a father, I think, I'd probably answer it differently than as in my role. But I think ultimately what we're finding is 2 things. One, I would say, with all that aside, I love our product and I love that we're rated E for everyone and we're having a good time with a great sport. But I also think that when you talk about the mainstream, I don't know that there is a mainstream anymore. I think there's something for everyone now. And I think niche markets are important. And so whether or not everything that we're talking about becomes globally massive, everyone, tons of eyeballs, I don't know what the future looks like. I don't even know what ratings look like in the future. It doesn't necessarily matter because I think niche markets and powerful niche markets will be very interesting to the future of media. And so we're just going to keep cranking on the thing that we love, and we are really happy with with what we're seeing so far, and we're just going to keep grinding because our fans love it. We're finding new fans every day, and we think we're providing them a really cool product, and we're focused on that.
I love it. I love it. Matt, man, it's been awesome. I
Thank you.
appreciate your insights, your transparency with everything going on with the league. The storytelling's awesome, whether it's remote or not. I don't think the average eye would know because the stories are compelling, the players are compelling. The league itself, seems limitless for where you guys can take it. So really appreciate your time and coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. The fact that you guys are taking notice of it is really cool. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been great. Hey, this is Ryan Alford, host of the Radcast. Really appreciate Matt Arden coming on today to talk all things NBA 2K League. Follow more, just Google NBA 2K League. They're right there at the top. You can learn more about the league and everything that they have going on, and go follow their series on YouTube. It's great content. This is Ryan Alford. We'll see you next time.